Welcome back to Up the Villa. On this episode, we're going to take an in-depth tactical look at Crystal Palace and the way that they play. We're going to go to some still images and have a look at the way that they're setting up, defending, but also attacking and pressing as well. And then at the end, we're going to merge the two teams together and we're going to decipher and come up with the plan on how Aston Villa beat Crystal Palace. Yes, let's manifest the victory and let's get Villa firing and get us back on track. So Oliver Glasner's system from last season has not evolved as much as what they would have hoped. The success, the victories, they're just a completely different team to the team that ended last season. And I think when you take away Elise, Ayew and Anderson, they're big players to leave any team. And I think we can all look at Crystal Palace and think Elise leaving, big problems, creativity, a clutch player, skillful, direct, dynamic, link up with Eze. That's going to be a big blow in itself. But the other one is one of the most underrated Premier League defenders in Anderson leaving and going to Fulham. And you look at Fulham now and the way that they play, with Anderson in there, who's pinging those balls, who's got that Premier League experience, well suited to life in London. So I think that is a big blow in itself and can get overlooked as well. And then Ayew, we had Ayew. He scores goals. He scores goals when you don't expect him. He's scoring goals for Leicester when you don't expect him in the last minute. And these players can win games. So we're going to take a look at the Glasner system on what to expect from a Villa point of view, on how they're going to set up, and personnel can depend on this. They have got one big blow, and that's Adam Wharton. He got injured in the game at Villa Park. He's had surgery, so he's out. So you're going to be looking at a midfielder of sort of like Deveni or Lerma or Decore, who's now back, and they'll be partnering Hughes in the middle. Eze, we're not sure whether he'll be playing or not, but I'll put him in because he's just integral to this team and the way that they play. If it's not Eze, it could be Nketiah. So their system is a 5 at the back. Now, my personal view is that there's two different types of 5 at the back. So there's the ones where you set up to defend, and the ones where progressively you want to attack and it becomes a back 3. I think Wolves at the minute, who have been really struggling, and Gary O'Neill's been adopting a back 4, has now reverted to a back 5 because the back 4 can't defend. Now that tells me that that's bad news, because you're basically just saying you want the extra man in there just to be able to defend. Whereas Glasner's system is more of the attacking side. There's 2 wing backs who like to bomb on and get forward in Mitchell and Munoz. We'll go in depth on Munoz of what he does well, because I really do rate Munoz. I think he's really good. So then that leaves a 3-4-3. So you've got Chalobah, Lacroix, and you've got Guehi. Guehi can sometimes step into that midfield area as well. He did that in the home game against Fulham. There's a midfield 2, either side of Mateta, actively acts as number 10s. Eze, more of a free roaming, can literally go where he wants and do what he wants because he's just that good and he's a creative spark. And Sarr will just operate around that area through there. Mateta can drop deeper at times, or he can just be that focal point within their team. There is 1 or 2 areas within this Glasner team that I have picked up on, and areas that I think are what are posing them problems this season. The biggest problem for me is that this midfield is very isolated from the rest of the team. There's times where they are quite narrow together, and I think they've got players that are sometimes a little bit more reluctant to defend, such as Eze dropping deeper, Sarr dropping deeper, Mateta. So what ends up happening is that you're basically taking those 3 players out the game and saying you've got 7 players to do the defending. And I think at times when it does become a back 5, you can already start to see that if these 2 players don't come back and help out and defend, that midfield 2 can have problems in there because it's so isolated. And what we've seen this season are blindside runners off Hughes who are breaking through the lines on transition and are really attacking that back five. Sometimes what you'll see is that they've all been in advanced areas, and then there are other certain areas, especially in these areas, that are starting to get exposed as well. So this all paints a picture for me of players like Morgan Rogers, Leon Bailey, Ollie Watkins, who are going to be able to break through past those two central midfielders, past the two wing backs, and get space and joy and have green grass that they can run into. And then we can start getting midfield runners coming in as well. So that's generally how they've been playing this system. They do like to play with possession. They do press really well. Once the press is engaged and one goes, the next goes, they are really good at doing it. But I think sometimes once the system's got the little flaws of one doesn't press, one leaves, one stays, then everything starts to look a little bit messy. So we're going to go now and have a look at some of the things that they do well and some of the things that they do bad, and then we'll merge the two teams together. So one of the big things that Villa have got to make sure that we are stopping is Mateta. Mateta, strong, powerful, can drop deeper, can hold the ball up. He's quite quick. He's got good pace about him. But his physicality and his strength is something that's very difficult to get him off the ball. What having him on the ball allows them to do is it allows them to get the runners off Mateta and enables him to have runners that go in beyond him. So that's something that we can see. You can also start to see part of this system. So you've got the midfield two who are central. You've got Sarr and you've got Nketiah on the opposite side. And then you've got Guehi and Munoz, the two wing backs, who are looking to get into those areas and offer the width. You'd expect Sarr to go into that area in there as well and invert more than stay out wide because they want the width to come off with Munoz. Here now we're going to start to break down. You're going to start to see some of the areas for concern if you're a Crystal Palace fan and the areas of delight if you're an Aston Villa fan. Because these are the areas that once you bypass the wing backs and the press, and once you bypass the central midfield too, what you will find is that there is space out wide in these areas behind Mitchell, behind Munoz, behind the midfield too. There are massive gaps within this system that you are able to run on and get beyond. We've got Ait Nouri, we've got Gomez, we've got Semedo, who are all running beyond the Crystal Palace midfield and their defenders. Again, what we can see is that what's happening is sometimes when they are fully engaged with possession, they've been attacking, they're getting transitioned on. What you're then starting to see is their back three become a back 3/2 when it starts to get exposed and wing backs are out of position. And then what you're able to do is play these little balls into channel areas beyond a wing back, get space, and then you're able to peel off and get runners that are running in through on that back three. So just like what I was talking about earlier, the difference between a defensive back five and an attacking back five is that they want to become a back three. They want to stay as that three because they want the wing backs to get forward. So when that happens and they lose the ball, they actively end up looking like a back three. So again, you've got the space either side of the wing backs to be able to get through as well. And the midfield is becoming quite static. It doesn't have the legs in there to keep covering so much ground. For me, it needs an extra midfielder in there, I think. But then you're starting to break away from what their actual system is. Another area which we've kind of been touching on is about the midfield too. And because that midfield two are being isolated, either with number 10s not coming back, with wing backs not engaging too high up, you end up leaving a massive gap in the middle of the park. And that gap is there for those two players to operate in. But then what that allows is the opposition teams, like a Tielemans, a Barkley, who have got the ball, time and space to be able to exploit the Crystal Palace system. I've used that in the thumbnail. I think this is a major point and an area I think Villa will be able to really get joy in this game because the midfield two, we've got that much ground to cover up that it enables the Villa player or the Wolves player to have time to get his head up, to take a look, and then the wingers or the forward players are on their bike. They're able to exploit space. So those long balls are something that I think Villa will be able to look for. We know we can play them. We know we've got runners. We've got runners that can run all day in Rodgers, Bailey, Watkins. So that area, this is something that I think we'll be able to do. I think we'll be able to get the ball into a Tielemans. He's able to play a forward pass, whether it's into a channel, whether it's a nice little diagonal, and it's something that we can run onto. So I think this is something that I think we can really take a look at, because this is Munoz here. This is the right wing back. So he's massively out of position, and he's got a lot of ground to make up to get back. And we can see that he doesn't make the ground up, because here he is in the shot. Chalobah's failed to deal with it. Cunha's through. And again, there's a massive gap. You can already see these are the two wing backs. So we've got a wing back, and we've got a back two. And there might be a player that's out of shot there, maybe. But this is something that I think Villa will really look to try and do. You've got two central midfielders who are scrambling around again. They didn't put the pressure on the ball. The ball's gone over the top, and Wolves were able to exploit this one through here as well. There are positives for Crystal Palace, and the one positive is their press. Their press, when it's fully engaged, is very, very good. So here we can see, it's changed the colour so I can... this pitch looks quite bright. Right, so here we can see that Spurs have the ball and are playing out from the back. And I absolutely love what Munoz does here. I think it's fantastic. Munoz is here. So what we can see is that he's here and he's walking past Udogie. So he's going into that area through there, or he might be walking back up there to get back into position. But what he does here is when he notices that there's two Palace players that are going to press this Spurs player, he takes a step and he stops. And he stops and he senses an opportunity. And the opportunity is that he knows that this ball is going to go into here. So he's walking away. He takes a step. He goes, there's an opportunity here. And he's on his bike. He's on his bike to Van der Ven. And what he does is he presses Van der Ven. He challenges Van der Ven and wins the ball back. And then he puts in a beautiful cross to Mateta. And Mateta's able to score. And this is really good. And it shows a real good sort of trigger point of when Mateta gets there, the rest of the team can press. And Munoz knew that it was his time to go, because he's ambling, he's walking back. And it's just that moment when he takes that little step to stop and think, no, I've got to go this way. And he goes that way and he wins the ball and the score. So it shows that even when you feel that your team is pretty comfortable with the ball at the back, that teams can set traps, and just a ball that goes back to a centre half that's just a nice passing. You're probably watching it thinking, oh, there's no danger there. There's no danger. You've got to be switched on in the Premier League all the time. And Van der Ven doesn't deal with it. He gets pressed. He gets harried. Munoz wins the ball and Palace are able to score. So we've got another shot here of the Munoz press. And I will back it up and say that it's good and bad. There are good and bad sides to the Munoz press and the Palace press, because if they press and win the ball back like they did against Spurs, then perfect. But if you press and don't win it back and you lose the ball and you're massively out of position, then those are the areas that an opposition team can exploit. And we've seen this again against Liverpool. We've got a Tsimikas ball that's through to Cody Gakpo. We've got Munoz, who was out of position. He's out of position. The line's not right. The ball's gone in behind, and Jota's able to score. The line is literally terrible as well. So, that line needs to be straighter. You need to try and play him offside. Emery, if this was Emery, would be absolutely fuming, because we've seen Emery, when he's talking about Villa's line, has to be perfect. He knows the line has to be good, and that's a bad line from Crystal Palace. So I think those are some key areas that I think Villa can exploit. They're areas that Villa can get joy in. I've showed you opportunities and things that we need to be looking out for. So what I've done now is I've combined the 11 of each team. Sometimes I don't get the Villa 11 right, so I'm not going to get the Palace 11 right. If there's any Palace fans that are watching going, he's not going to play, but it is what it is, right? So I've gone with the Palace lineup. I've put Nketiah in. I don't know whether Eze is going to play. I've got Devaney in because we've got Wharton out. And then for the Villa lineup, I've gone with hopefully Cash is back. If Concer's out, Castle will play. Hopefully Pau. If Pau's out, Mings will play. I've gone with a midfield 2 of Barkley and Tielemans. And then I've gone Rodgers on the left, McGinn off Watkins, Bailey out wide. Hear me out, Villa fans. This is why. So, there's some key areas and some key battles that I think need to be won. I think there's 3. So we'll go with yellow, like my fleece. Right, so we've got key battle number 1 is the battle that I think, whatever the midfield 2 of Palace is, I think Villa's will be better. So Onana's probably out. We've got Kamara out. So hopefully it's Barkley in there. If it's Barkley, I'm happy because then it means McGinn can play off Watkins, which I think he's going to be good in this game. So that's key battle number 1. We've already spoke about the distances, the gaps. I think Barkley's got a really good passing range on him. And if he can ping those balls forward to the flank, I think this is the next area that I think is going to be vitally important. Why I think that is because we know Munoz is going to be bombing on and going forward. We know Luca Dean will be doing the same. There's going to be probably a bit of a crossover. But I imagine Digne's average position in this game will be somewhat there. But what I would like to see from the play on the left for Villa is to move out wide a little bit. And why I think that will be important in this game is that if Barkley can find Rodgers quickly, it'll mean that the Palace centre-half has to go with the wide left player for Villa, which will then mean that there's gaps in these areas. And I think these areas are going to be vitally important as well. The next area that I think is really important in this game from a Villa point of view is this position here as well, is the player off the striker. Because what's going to happen is we know that they're going to leave 3 at the back. So they'll have 3 at the back. And by having this player in here, if you're looking at Devaney will be up against Barkley, Hughes will be up against Tielemans, McGinn or the number 10 off the striker can drop a bit deeper, which will move a centre-half. They'll have to follow that player, which will then move Bailey into an area that he can attack and exploit. Those are the areas. Super amounts of movement are crucial against this Crystal Palace team. And I think we've got enough within our front line, within our midfield, that we can do it. I think we can get the victory in this game. We saw in the Carabao Cup that we were pretty good with the ball against arguably this exact team. So I think that's the area. The areas that I think we've really got to worry about are Mateta dropping and the runners off. I think those players can offer quite a bit for Crystal Palace. So we've got to keep those quiet. But I think we've just got to make sure Mateta's isolated from everybody else. If Eze plays, it's a different story because he can cover ground. We've got to track the runner. We've got to block the shots on the edge of the box. We've just got to make sure we are tactically everywhere that Eze is as well. So I think there's enough there for Villa to look at and exploit. So Villa fans, I've gone pretty in depth there. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. If there's any Crystal Palace fans that have got this far, smash the like. Comment your thoughts. Villa fans, do exactly the same. Let's try and get 800 likes on this episode. Comment your thoughts. Up the Villa.